my life is full of ironies and metaphors, and the biggest irony of all is that 10 years ago, outside the Brooklyn Diner at a stoplight, a girl tapped me on the shoulder and asked me if I was Paula, and I said, yeah, and she said, you know what's so cool is my boss has a framed thank you letter, and you're like the only entertainer that's done that. I said, who's your boss? She goes, I work for the president of Billboard magazine, Mike Ellis. I said, wow. I said, you want to have lunch with me? And I asked her if she was an inspiring songwriter, and she said, isn't everyone who works at Billboard? I asked if she was good, and she said, yeah, and I went and I listened to some of her demos, and I earmarked like 3 songs that I wanted for myself, and that day we wrote one of the biggest hits ever and gave it to Kylie Minogue, and it was the first time she ever entered the UK charts at number 1 and went number 1 in every territory in Europe. And I said, look, I don't know you, but if you're serious, give 2 weeks notice and I'll move you into my house in LA. And I moved a stranger, Kara DioGuardi, into my home 10 years ago, and she stayed with me off and on for a year, and I took her to all the prominent writers, and from the Britney camp and Christina camp, and publishers and producers, and she started her career, and I've been so proud ever since. I've said to the producers she should write the theme song for them, but you know, the irony is they had no idea that we were friends. We were like, and she was my best roommate, except she did weird things like sleepwalk and eat at my refrigerator. But other than that, we had a blast. She's not afraid to step up. I step up for her, she steps up for me, and we beat Simon up sometimes. And, you know, it is what it is. The only thing is that whenever there's a split decision, it goes to Simon. Boo-hoo. We're laughing all the time, and Simon's going, it troubles him that we're friends. Like, he goes, how in a million trillion years did this happen?
I understand some rumors are flying that you're engaged.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And when did you get engaged?
December 8th in Mexico.
Ooh, romantic.
Day before my 38th birthday.
See, that's perfect. Now you move into your 30s. It's like the new chapter of your life, marriage, new show. It's exciting.
I mean, this has been a killer year. I mean, show, engaged. I don't know what's next. It just keeps getting better.
How did he propose? You're in this magical place, Mexico.
Yeah.
Was that on the beach? Where was it?
Vallarta.
Okay.
And we had the doors open, he had some candles lit, and it was very mellow. I had my cozy little pajamas on, and we were just kind of hanging out, and he said, you know, I love you, and all this stuff. And he said, but I have a question for you. And I said, what's the question? He said, where are my shoes? I said, I don't know where your shoes are. He's like, all right, well, then will you marry me?
Totally catching you off guard. I like
your shoes, but sure, I'll marry you.
There's only really one thing that we respond to, the cast responds to, which we're lucky enough to be treated to every single week, which is a great script. It almost, to me, it almost doesn't matter who the story is centered on, or whether it's predominantly a medical mystery as opposed to a personal, romantic story. That doesn't really matter as long as it's well done. And every week, these incredible people, these incredible writers give us just amazingly well done stories.
It's a real mix of stuff that we've been doing. We've done a very kind of small unraveling episodes just to see what that's like, where it's you know, very, very different subjects, but kind of bizarrely unraveled. And then huge ones, like with big storylines and massive, big high production values and all that stuff. So they're really, really mixing it up to see what the audience kind of responds more to. But the idea really is that every week is pretty different. That the audience gets to play around in very different areas when they're watching.
I love this genre of show. I was a huge X-Files fan, and for me, that's the fun of it, is always being kept on your toes and not quite being able to suss out who's good and who's bad and what the motivations are. And you know, that the thing that amazes me is just that what we're capable now of putting on screen in television. I mean, the things that you can do on TV are outrageous, what you couldn't even do in a medium budget film even 10 years ago. So there's just, you know, we get that ain't it cool thing every week, and then if we can keep people intrigued in the mystery, I think we got a show on our hands.
The good thing is that we're not running out of stories, which is great, and I think that's a testimony to the actors and to the firemen that I work with Peter and Evan, the guys that help us to technically design our fire sequences. the stories are ever evolving, and so we haven't run out of stories yet, which I think is good. It's actually even more difficult because he's playing a guy in a wheelchair. As he says, we hired him to play somebody who's absolutely still, who's paralyzed, and we couldn't have hired an actor for whom it's more difficult. But he rose to the occasion, man, and he didn't want any special treatment, and I think the audience is going to be really surprised by some of the stuff that I wasn't, because we wrote the role as it was. We didn't write it for Michael, and then afterwards, it was actually Peter's idea. Let's call Michael and see if Michael wants to do it. So he's great in it, you know. I think he's great.